Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a beautiful day. So, I just got done watching this documentary, Straight Out of Darkness with the crown and stuff. And they brought up how Mott was the beginning gods or whatever. And then they brought up Mean Narmer. I was like, oh my goodness, what? So then they kept going down and they brought up different people throughout history. And then, you got the Mentuhotep, I believe his name is. I call him Him 10 or whatever. If you notice, what I mean, he would keep trying to bring back a 10 or a moon or whatever, and which wasn't no gods. It was they was calling it the Most High. They turned it into gods because if you pay attention to this history, there was no image. Because I listened to what they were saying about Ma'at, and unaware, they're basically saying like all these laws got introduced. They showed the little laws. The blasphemy one popped up. The don't blaspheme the gods and woo out the bam. But whenever they kept talking about the laws of Matt, I'm gonna tell you which ones they kept talking about. The different speakers kept saying, don't kill, don't steal. One of them said, don't lie on others, don't bear false witness. Another one said, don't steal from the temple, don't covet out for the temple. Another one was like, they just kept saying ones that's from the Ten Commandments, but none of the first three. You see what I'm saying? Because the gods and the pharaohs, the Nephilim, have that spot. So then I kept listening, and they brought up a few pharaohs. They brought up the Hyksos and whatnot, and all this other stuff. And they were giving off some information, but what they ended up doing was they brought up the Hebrews and the Hyksos. So I'll explain. Remember how I was talking about how you have like Babylon and Assyria, and because you'll have Babylon, Assyria, Canaan, but then you have different spots like Edom and these other different actual countries. Well, outside of that, you have people that were up north. They call them like Caucasus or Caucasus Mountains. So what you're looking at is like a bunch of Asiatic, African type people that are over. This isn't race. I'm just so then you have the more European people that's coming down slowly over time. Not all the way up here in Europe, but the people that's camped around these different lands and whatnot. So as I've told you all, Mentuhotep, two. Well, first you have the Mott and all that in 3K BC. In 4K BC, you have the language Ge'ez in Ethiopia and all that. And 3K BC, you have Mean Narmer, which is the dude that was bringing Maya and all these gods and all this other stuff. And then they kept bringing up like conceptions and all this other stuff and immaculate births. But that's where it's starting to happen. This is what I'm talking about. Like what they're doing is turning everybody into women and men in the spirit and telling everybody that what's happening is you're giving birth to concepts. And what's happening is, I was talking to a friend about this recently, and I believe that what's happening with this Bible that the Greeks created, which was even further perpetuated by the Babylonians, the Persians, and the Egyptians, I'm telling you, which was messed with by the Canaanites, Assyria, Babylon. It's just a long perpetuated story of subtle intellectual cues with a source code attached. So what you'll have is after Mean Narmer and all that, and they bring the Maya and all that, and people are probably getting killed for gods and all this other stuff. Then you have Mentuhotep, which if you read his bio and about him, he seemed like a really nice guy and was like a loving, caring person. So then you have later down the line the Hyksos and all these Asiatic peoples I talked about came and attacked around like 1800, 1700. So then they were in rule for a few, 2, 3, 400 years, however long. And then you have Mose, right? So then he came and was trying to bring back a moon or a 10, and he reformed all these different lands and did a bunch of amazing stuff, but he extended. He like spread out just like Moses did, right? And so then you go even further and you have they started spreading out in the wilderness and acting a fool. So then the Shemites, so then they made an important part they brought up in this documentary. They were talking about how they were showing a scene with the calf and all that. I told you all the Shemites kept, like they call it Israel, that land, Sodom, since the beginning where the Lord lay. They're taking something from Egypt, something from a long time ago. I'm telling you the Ten Commandments with the source code attached. Because even if you look at the story of Moses, he was drawn from the rivers out of Egypt, or he was placed into the rivers in Egypt. And then later a woman pulled him out of the rivers. I'm telling you, these people that keep playing with these words and the source code and create more and more and more. And then what they do is, because at first it was the Ten Commandments, then it turned into 616 mitzvahs. Yeah, they try to cleverly remove three of them, the Ark of the Covenant. And so basically what I'm saying is you have these different people in religions, the Shemites and the Japhethians, who keep putting the Ten Commandments in the Quran and in the Bible, and keep resurrecting. Look, now Trump, Hitler went and acted a nut because of Germany, and then Martin Luther, and then now Trump has a Bible. I'm not calling Trump those men, but now Trump's resurrecting the Bible and doing all this other stuff. I think somebody said he removed the Ten Commandments out of his. I don't know what's going on with that. But anyways, the point is, so then around like 1500, Amos comes and draws people from Pharaoh's kingdoms, draws people out of this foolishness. Then you have in 1300, once they start creating all these mitzvahs and writing all this foolishness, another man, Akhenaten, who I call Joshua, who went through the land. They said he went through the land, and they showed the book of Joshua and all this other stuff and how he was murdering and stuff. So he closed the borders of Egypt and kicked everybody out that was doing all that foolishness and united the kingdom again. Like, that's why they be. But the problem is, what he did was he removed all their gods, all the concepts of Ma'at, Osiris, all these gods. If you pay attention to the gods, they're saying Osiris and Horus, and they're holding scales. That's the problem with the whole idea of Ma'at. What you're doing is they created a concept where some god's holding a scale, and if your heart is heavier than all these laws that they added to the scale, then you're going to the afterlife of negativity and being destroyed. And then outside of that, I know how the law works. If people are breaking laws, they're probably killing them if they're blaspheming and doing all this other stuff. And just like it's written that Noah was the first one to blaspheme, that so is Mean Narmer, who was Cain the farmer, who wrote about blasphemies in Ma'at. So then back down to Joshua. Akhenaten kicked all his foolishness out, said, no, it's not going to happen. Well, then later down the line, I say Samuel, then you have all these religious advisors and sages and priests after Akhenaten. And what they did was they advised his son, Tut. And if you notice, they don't write about Joshua's family in the Bible and stuff. Yeah. So, but then later down the line, there are priests and stuff that appoint new kings. Right. Because if you pay attention, if you pay attention to what they're talking about with a 10 and all that, that's basically saying the Most High. It's the spirit and the lights. It's the wind and the sun, the disk around the sun. The sun doesn't have a disk. It's the light. And actually, the real disk around the sun, go look up what the heliosphere is. Interesting, right? People don't pay attention to things. And when you actually do research and understand what words mean, remember I said science, but don't mix it with religion, like, oh, religious and atoms are the. I'm telling you, there's a beautiful world of knowledge out there, and people are playing with themselves. So then you go even further. King Tut, who loved his father, but once his father was gone, got rid of all these temples of a 10, and then started all this polytheism and bringing all these gods in and bringing it back in over and over. Well, then you have all these different nations that's getting mixed into this stuff and taking their knowledge from it. Who attacked Egypt a long time ago first? The Middle East did. Man, they went and rampaged and acted a fool and took it over. You notice now, whenever anybody of color tries to make Egyptian movies, the Shemites or the Middle Eastern people, Arab, they call themselves Arabs. I'm just telling you all the words they use, so this isn't racism. They get all mad. They get mad at that movie that was just made about Cleopatra. But if you watch the Ten Commandments, this dude was a white dude with long gray. But he was a pharaoh, right? And they went and dug all these pharaoh stuff up and learned all their knowledge and information. Look up all these different words from the documentaries. And it's all like English and German and Middle Eastern words now, right? Yeah. Yahshua, that's Yashu. That's Sashu of Yah. YH. It's supposed to be V. I'm telling you, they put two W's, they put two V's there. Germans and English, they are playing with people and transliterating stuff. And then they'll say Yahweh is the devil or something like that. People are playing, well, I just tell you, they're turning wisdom into the dragon. So then you go even further. I believe it's called the Instruction of Amenemep, and then his father, I'm not even going to try to pretend to say his name. It's like pseudo something, Susesenes or something like that. Okay. The videos before this talking about the Garden of Egypt with transliteration, and then the other video, it talks a lot about this stuff. So I believe that's David and his son Solomon. But if you pay attention even further, I believe Tut was Saul. I believe David and Solomon gave beautiful instruction because the Successini or whatever his name is, dude built the temple. All these He rebuilt the temple, and if you pay attention to each of these major men, that's the good people that's reuniting Egypt. They come with a moon or a 10, which is the spirit and the light. I'm telling y'all, and they turn it into physical symbol. The sun, the gods. I'm telling you, they was destroying all this stuff. So then you go later down the line, this stuff gets spread throughout the world. Now the Semitic people and everybody else are establishing major religions. Well, once it gets there, who's the next person in line? So now I want to get into the Judah and Tamar prophecy. And so when I do that, this is about to be a very spiritual thing that I'm trying to conceptualize from my heart. So I need not attack. If you feel some type of way, I mean, you can leave comments. We can talk about it. But I'm telling you, blatant attacks. Hey, perhaps you may see something that comes from you. And then you can work on something. Or who I am can see something from who I am. And then I can work on that thing. If that makes sense. Oof. Told you all, that's why I don't talk to certain people a certain way, because the sun will shine and then it can confuse people and they don't even realize what they're reading or hearing. And then, anyways, I am going to have a beautiful life, and I am not here to ensnare or constrict people, and I am happy. So, Judah and Tamar. Judah, right? Yehuda, which is a branch of Yahshua. So anyways, before I get into Judah and Tamar, I want to talk about Abraham, and then talk about even what's going on with why Moshe or Amos had to fix things. Abraham, so the Assyrians were attacking Babylon and all these different, the Indus Valley and all that. And so then you was having war back then. Well, what ends up happening is then Abraham, man, quit playing with me. Him, Ham, 10, like quit playing, bro. He went to Pharaoh, right? And then when he went to Pharaoh, he plagued Pharaoh's kingdom. And Pharaoh was like, oh, this is your woman. I don't want nothing to do with this. Get up out of here. So then, then dude goes back and then gives reverence to Melchizedek, who is the Most High, who Baal, who sends people to the head of the church to be sacrificed to Melech. Like, quit playing me, bro. And then in Nebuchadnezzar, there will be a great statue built. Like, bro, I'm trying to help as many people as possible. So Abraham goes and plagues Pharaoh. So then later on down the line, once all this stuff happens and then they go into Egypt, they're telling you what happened. So then Jacob tries to become a hunter of men, steals a blessing, goes into Egypt, and then gets scared, right? He crosses a river. And then this dude has multiple wives. So he done broke the covenant many times, because I'm not saying having multiple wives. I'm saying basically he's committing adultery with himself. He goes and finds the name and then names it Isis Ra-El. That's 2 Egyptian gods and a Sumerian god. You see what I'm saying? Gods instead of the Most High. And realizing they're angels or saints coming to remind us or tell us things. So then he goes into Egypt. His flesh gets took. The brothers go into coveting and does all this crazy stuff. And then eventually the brother becomes the Most High in Egypt, next to the Pharaoh, next to the king. That's a man ruling next to who I am. For what? All right, you understand what I'm telling you all? Because the Pharaoh just took what each of us are, the Most High. I'm telling you. The Pharaoh will make a river his own. I'm against the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So you go even further. They go into Egypt, right? So now the story, Jacob, now he's Egyptian. He's all in Egypt doing all this other stuff. He's terrified of his brother, right? The real hunter of men. But the brother's like, come on, guys. I am cool. We're all happy. Just be happy. Well, then the dude's like, no, we're just going to keep going forward. And then curses the family and does all this other stuff. You see what I'm saying? So if you look at that in real history, so then Moses comes out of that and is birthed out of all that. Moses, who's different than his forefathers and goes back to the Aten or Amun. Come on, man. I'm telling y'all, they're taking Egyptian stories, the Semitic people and the Europeans, and then they're creating a whole nother Yadig out of it, and doing what the original Pharaoh did, creating a god and then creating law out of it. I tell you, Cain and the Shemites and the Japhethians, or in other words, Judaism. Because, back to further down the line, Judah and Tamar. So if you pay attention to Judah and Tamar, Judah had 3 sons. The first 2 was wicked, so they was removed. So if I'm not calling these men wicked, I'm just telling you what these people are doing with words, because they called the pharaohs evil in Egypt, and that's where all their knowledge and information comes from. This is ridiculous. That's why they keep digging up dead bodies, looking for eternal life and magic, and going through pagans. You pagan. So, anyways, um, so what's birthed out of this Yahuda, or what they mean to say the Shua of Yahshua, but they're playing words, Yahuda now. Yeah, see, I found you all and I caught y'all, and they're creating King Samuel and then creating Israel and Yahuda. Playing me. So then you go even further. Now you're looking at I'm gonna explain Elijah real quick, or the truth of the matter is Zoroaster. So the first 2 sons by Judah, by the Shua of Yah, was if you look at it, the Sunesinese guys I was talking about, or in the last video, I don't know how to say his name, dude. And then he gave birth to Amenemot, which he has the instruction of Amenemot. I call that David and Solomon. Okay, so if you pay attention, I call Tut Saul. Now, what ended up happening to Tut? They obliterated him from history. They're like, no, you're just a pharaoh. Pharaohs are evil. Pharaoh. But then if you look at David and Solomon, or if you look at David, they said David wasn't an Egyptian pharaoh. So they took him out of that. But at the same time, they call him a murderer. So they acknowledged David, but said he's not the word. So there's the first 2 firstborns, the one that was wicked before the Lord, and then the one that was spilt his seed, right? Because what did David end up doing? Adultery and all this other stuff. So then you go even further. I'm not accusing him of those things. I'm just, all I can do is communicate. So then you go to Solomon, right? Now, he didn't want to lose his 3rd son. So what did Solomon do? Branched out into 1,000,000 different people, and now everybody's the instruction of Amenemot, and now it's Solomon, and they all fly through the word, and then they attach it, the Psalms to, and say it's the Psalms and Solomon's song, and but they, even though they give the Psalms to David, they call it the Song of Solomon, and then they have the Psalms, the writings from that guy. And then all these instructions, the Ecclesiastes and the Proverbs. Yeah, okay. So then all that lived on and stuff, basically, but they wouldn't let David and Solomon build the temple. You see, they're still talking about the temple's torn, We're waiting for the 3rd temple. So then you have Elijah, right? You have Elijah, who basically comes Zoroastrianism, or Zoroaster. And what do? They basically obliterated the Zoroastrians, but Elijah will never die. Oh, do they not acknowledge Elijah? Like, I will give you some food for thought. Like, they talk about Jesus Christ and stuff, but if you bring up Elijah, yeah, and fire shall come from his mouth. I believe Elijah actually is one of the witnesses, and the 2 witnesses that rise up. I believe it's Elijah and Yehohanan, and I'm going to explain something. I believe those are the twins. And so you guys, I have a lot of videos in the past, and this is why I'm not deleting them anymore. I am showing with each video how knowledge and wisdom can actually shine down when you don't get trapped into a concept and are open to learn new things. Well, so I seen in the video that they were talking about, or the document, they kept talking about the Sudan, the Africans from down there, and they had to come up, and they're just putting race into it and not looking and researching real knowledge. And so they're wanting it to be like black or African, and all that's irrelevant. I'm telling you it is. So then you keep paying attention. Elijah, the one with the scarlet ribbon, Elijah, the one with the scarlet ribbon, who was brutal, who put his hand back. But then you have the other one, which was Yohanan, right? Perez and Zerah. Here's the crazy thing about how this is working. I am who I am, and I possess both. The fire and the water, so to speak. The wine and the meat, if that makes sense. So, I'll give an example. I wouldn't have been able to do this necessarily the way I did it without Elijah and his fire, without going against their, so blasphemy, that trapped me. Oh, it trapped me good. ate that shit. Then you have the peace and love, and I will never leave thee or forsake thee, and I am peace and mercy. Because you can never be left and forsake is good, but if what's never leaving you or forsaking you is destructive, then you're in pain. So then you have the fire, the I will not bow, which came from the prophets, as I said before, right? And then you have the peace and love, and I am forgiveness. I am sorry. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. So then I believe Zoroaster and Yehohanan the Baptist, or Zoroaster the Firestorm and Yehohanan the Baptist, were the two witnesses. But the thing is about them, though, I understand why they were lifted up. Because Elijah was bloody violent. And so what ended up happening, not Elijah, but what I'm saying is they ended up building fire temples and became Phoenicians and doing all sorts of stuff, which is idolatry and stuff. So if he was teaching about the Most High, which is like fire, remember, like the fire coming down, which is like the disk of the sun. And then I believe Yehohanan, right, which was like the waters, the living waters, he basically taught of forgiveness and repentance, which washed away some of that fiery spirit. But then what ended up happening, they killed him and beheaded his story. And then they kept going on with the fire and acting a nut with the stoning. So then what they did was, instead of peace and mercy in the fire, what they took was Moses. Well, not Moses. They took Aaron, which was the Semitic people playing with Moses and created 616 laws. And then they took Elijah's fire, or then the Prince of Persia. They took Zoroaster or Michael and turned him into a bloody vine. They talking about the she-bears in the wilderness and all these stories about slaying Baal's prophets and all that. That dude, I believe, was a prophet and intelligence. All these different men that are bringing new light and new days are intelligent, wise. And so I believe the two twins or whatever are Zoroaster and John the Baptist. That's just a piece of my heart. They were like the two witnesses, the two sons, the two twins. And if you can pay attention to it, Canaanite women, that's in the Canaan, Levant and all that. Zoroaster was. And then so was John the Baptist in Israel, that land they call Sodom. I'm telling you guys, they're playing with translations and words. I seem to be connected to some kind of net. I need not entice anybody or teach anybody anything, certain things of that aspect of nature. He who can see, can see. So understand what I'm saying. Life is life, and that's why I give the 10 commandments 10. That's funny. And that's why I'm trying to free as many people as possible and teach as many people as possible and get them out of this foolishness, and get them out of this religious buffoonery. If religious buffoonery and stuff is what you want to do, okay, but mythologize it, dude. I'm telling you, anything you give power over you, the different words you let rule over you, the different things that you allow to harm you, is what's going to manifest into life. They're basically treating humanity like we have a God inside, a man, a woman, a child spirit, an animal, demons attached, all 6, right? And none of them are who I am. You see what I'm saying? Because I'll tell you, this is how it's working. I am just is. So you see me saying different videos, I am, and who I am is man. And then a woman would say, disclaimer, I'm just telling you all for edification, I am a woman. That's what a woman would say. And so understand what I just said. You have the dynamic of existence, and then that which is man and woman. Man and woman create child, not man and man and man, and woman and woman and woman. Not man in the spirit and then pretending to be a woman giving birth to concepts. Oh, no. I am who I am, and I just invented that. I am who I am, and I just wrote that. If I am a man, then let that be what that is. I am who I am, and who I am, just blah, 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 did this. That's that person. What's happening is, if what I'm saying is the name that's in that book, every different man, now attach that to each and every single different man. When you do that, they each have their own I am. And which means if you all are putting it all together and putting a symbol over that I am leaves the Lord God, you're mixing hundreds of personalities into an image, putting it in the sky, taking everything from who I am out of it to take to that, and then using that to pow whenever who I am is against that image that who they are just created. A lot of times when people do step on the mountain and put it inside, they have 5,000 different ideas at the same time, all the time, and don't know which way to go, and are creating, and having desires to do all this stuff. When in actuality, people would be like, what are you doing? This is a hard burden. Cross the bear. No. How do you know what a cross is? How do you know what bearing a cross is? How do you know how to conceptually give birth through a magical woman flesh? Right. Telling you guys. So the knowledge that we do possess, the knowledge that who I am does possess, let it be for what I am, reality, for truth and life, and whatever, man. Because the more people play with them, like, okay, I'll give you different ideas, like how it says a scroll will be in the heavens. One day the heavens will roll up like a scroll and all will vanish and all this other stuff. One day it'll just be who I am in my throne room. Does that make sense? Anybody that can hear what I'm saying? All your fears, all your paranoias, all that stuff are not who I am. I am not fear. I am not paranoia. I am not 50,000 different people's legions of words and ideas and gods mixed into one, trying to live up to an image of buffoonery. They're creating multiple personality disorder, and then with money trying to heal it in doctor's offices and different places. I'm telling you all, because they got all this magical, we each go to church on Sunday or Saturday or whatever day, and then you go into any institution and get to talking any of that stuff, and watch what they're going to do. It's just us versus them everywhere. Atheism, that's atenism, or the I ams transliterated. I'm telling y'all, they are playing. And words do matter. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with who I am. We each are. A scientist can't argue with me for that, because meiosis and mitosis, then I grow and I eat Cheerios and Osis. I'm telling y'all, and then I perceive the world from first person hand view. I may be influenced by honor thy father and mother. Who's going to argue with this stuff? I'm trying to tell you all. It all is just different concepts splitting from what I am. Life. But because in life is death. What I am. I just am. All of us are. And we're all giving life to different things that we are not. Because what I hear people say, oh, the forefathers, they did. Splitting themselves apart instead of who I am, breaking away from my mother and father's house when I am of age or when I am ready, and then being who I am. Not playing with, bearing false with. Every thought of death is undefined. 0 over a number. 0 divided by a number. You're giving life to something you're not. You're bearing false witness. Science and religion can't argue with me. Well, I'm a philosopher and I think that everybody has their own world. Put nothing before who I am. No gods or idols. So your own world. Yeah, buddy. This is life. But I am continually. Some people don't want this type of knowledge and information to exist. We're all in this. We are children of our forefathers. But who I am can change at any time. A man condemned me for winking one time because his scriptures told the child. So then the wife gave desire to the husband's needs and gave birth to you're evil for winking. But if you're not a legion, I am he that chooses what's right and wrong. So am I in trouble for winking, or the idea for bombing 35,000 people and then calling Kamas? You got to put a Kamas after and or before but. I am who I am.